what people are seeing is an unequal Department of Justice, where on one hand you have BLM violent rioters who are not prosecuting.
You're going off
topic. You have BLM violent rioters who are not being prosecuted by the DOJ, and you have nonviolent individuals who were in the Capitol on January 6th but did not commit violent acts who are being prosecuted by the DOJ, being held. That is inherently un-American.
That's inherently un-American. In the criminal defendants and the people who were raped and kidnapped into Gaza.
I draw a distinction by the DOJ, the fact that they refuse to prosecute violent rioters during BLM, and yet they have an unequal set of rules and go after nonviolent individuals on January 6th. CNN continues to struggle because you continue to fail to understand the American people's frustration with this two-tiered set of justice in this country.
I don't think that has to do with calling the criminal defendants.
It has to do with a lot more than that, but that's one aspect of it.
Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, thanks for your time tonight.
Caitlin, thank you so much.
All right, guys, so we got to react to what I can only really describe as a verbal beatdown for 12 minutes straight by Republican GOP Representative Elise Stefanik, who is just schooling Kaitlan Collins on Biden, the Democrats, January 6th, and the liberal media as well, too, okay? And Elise Stefanik has basically placed herself as a contender to be Trump's vice president. And I got to tell you guys, you know, Trump is probably going to have to choose a woman because of the fact that abortion is going to be a big issue going into 2024. In fact, that's the only issue that I think can save Democrats, especially following this DOJ report showing that Biden is not mentally fit to be president. If he is, in fact, the Democrats' nominee, which I don't think that he will be, yeah, best believe they're going to never stop talking about abortion. And for that reason, I do think that Trump's going to try to choose a female vice president that can talk about that issue in a way that is going to be beneficial for the GOP and not cost us the election. So with that being said, we have Elise Stefanik, who, in my opinion, I think she has shown an amazing ability to ruthlessly take on the liberal media. Again, she does not hold back, and most importantly, she is unapologetic about her positions, something that is a breath of fresh air coming from a member of the GOP, okay? Because a lot of these GOP reps that go on the liberal media, they love to play defense. But Elise Stefanik does not play defense. She goes on offense basically this whole interview, and I absolutely love it. Now, I can't promise you guys that I'm going to react to all 12 minutes of it because that's kind of long, right? But I'm going to react to probably the most important parts of it, and we're going to go from there. So without further ado, let's get into it.
New York Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, the House Republican Conference Chair and the highest-ranking woman in House leadership. I should note, Congresswoman, thanks for being here on this busy day. I'm just curious what it says to you about the U.S. that the Supreme Court is even hearing an argument like this about a former president and whether or not he violated the insurrectionist clause.
Well, it shows that the left and the Democrat Party and Joe Biden's campaign, they know they're going to lose at the ballot box, which is why you're seeing lawfare, you're seeing witch hunt after witch hunt, court case after court case, going after Joe Biden's top political opponent, which is Donald Trump. And today was a very bad day for Joe Biden. It was a very bad day in court for the left. It was a very bad day for the Colorado bogus court case. It was a very good day for President Trump, and it was a good day for the Constitution and the American people.
Facts. I mean, it has been a terrible week for Joe Biden, okay? I mean, the DOJ report showing that he's not mentally fit to be president, and this came out after Joe Biden was already being criticized for claiming that he's meeting with dead people. And then you have the Supreme Court case where the Never Trumper voters are trying to throw Trump off of the ballot. The Supreme Court, even the liberal justices, essentially gave a constitutional smackdown to the arguments of the liberal lawyer that was trying to make this case that Trump should be removed from the ballot by the states. So it looks like that Colorado Supreme Court ruling will get smacked down by the U.S. Supreme Court. So, yeah, it's just overall been a terrible, terrible, terrible week for Democrats and Joe Biden. So she's absolutely right about that. And a part of the reason why you're seeing the attacks against Trump is because of the desperation from the left to try to rig the outcome of the 2024 election. We all know what's happening here.
The American people are going to make this decision in November, not radical bureaucrats from the state of Colorado, not radical judges or far-left prosecutors.
But even though it's Republican and independent voters who brought this lawsuit in Colorado, I mean, I think that's an important part of this as well.
This is a witch hunt against President Trump, and it is not a coincidence that it is while President Trump is skyrocketing in the polls. Meanwhile, we saw a disastrous day for Joe Biden. Joe Biden started this week plummeting in the polls, the weakest polling for a modern-day president, an incumbent president, and yet you saw a feeble mental acuity lacking in the President of the United States just today. So this is a horrible day. It's a disastrous day for Joe Biden. It's a winning day for Donald Trump, and the Supreme Court case is likely to have multiple liberal justices that side with the conservative justices in this case, siding for the Constitution.
So you think that the court here is going to rule and overturn the Supreme Court in Colorado's decision?
Absolutely. And you heard questions, whether it was from Justice Elena Kagan, you heard multiple questions from the liberal justices who are likely, I believe this could be a 9-0, an 8-1, or a 7-2 case.
So the next thing that the Supreme Court could potentially take up is the question of Donald Trump's argument, his assertion of presidential immunity. If you trust the Supreme Court's decision on the 14th Amendment, will you accept what they decide on presidential immunity as well?
Well, certainly I will have something to say when the court makes that decision, but I already have put out a public statement. Of course, the president has presidential immunity. You can't handcuff a sitting president of the United States for future presidents to go after them. It would not allow them to do their job in their official capacity. So that was a wrong-headed decision. I expect the Supreme Court will overturn that as well.
The appeals court decision.
Yes.
Does that extend to President Biden? Do you think that he can do whatever and not get prosecuted as well?
Well, that's what the Trump campaign put out. They said this is a very slippery slope because it means that if you're of an opposing party, that you could go after your predecessor based upon policy disagreements or official acts. So that's why this is so egregious. And the reality.
Yeah. So I know why they're making this argument from a practical perspective, right? In the sense that they're trying to use this as a delay tactic, because the reason why they're actually making this argument is not because they actually really believe this, okay? Because I don't think that the Supreme Court is going to go for this. I don't think that the Supreme Court is going to say that the president has absolute immunity, that they basically do whatever they want and not be criminally charged for what I mean. I think the president, for the most part, does have quite a bit of leeway, unless your name is Trump, right, to do things that may not necessarily be lawful, okay? Like, for example, Obama drone striking American citizens in the Middle East, even though they haven't had a trial to find them guilty of anything, or, you know, Joe Biden taking classified documents. You know, it seems like there is quite a bit of leeway given to the president, again, unless your name is Trump. So the biggest issue here is not necessarily whether or not the president should have complete immunity. The real issue is that why is the immunity, okay, or why is there more leeway or benefit of the doubt given to Democrats like a Biden, an Obama, or a Hillary Clinton? Why is leeway given to them that's not extended to people like Trump? That's what the real question is, okay? And I think that's what the Trump campaign and Elise Stefanik and the Republicans are really getting at here. But I don't think that the Supreme Court is going to go along with this immunity argument that they're making. I think that they're making an argument as a delay tactic to get the Jack Smith trial pushed back until after the election, because they don't want Trump to have a conviction before the election, because that could affect the outcome of the election. So we will see when the Supreme Court actually really takes up this case. But I wouldn't expect this to go in the direction of the Supreme Court granting Trump absolute immunity from prosecution. I don't think that that's how they're going to rule. I'm just being honest with you guys. But it's more of a delay tactic than anything. I don't think they actually really expect the Supreme Court to rule in their favor.
Is, Kaitlan, the issues that the American people are concerned about, they're concerned about the border, they're concerned about the inflation crisis, they're concerned about the lack of leadership from the sitting president of the United States, Joe Biden. That's why they're going to make the decision to vote for President Trump at the polls, and that's why you're seeing, despite lawsuit after lawsuit, President Trump's numbers continue to go up, because this is not a fair justice system right now. You see the justice system being weaponized against Joe Biden's top political opponent, and that's Donald Trump.
I think.
Yeah, I love this, right? This is why I like Elise Stefanik in regards to her ability to take on the media. And I think that's super important because what she did there is that she was asked a gotcha question from Kaitlan Collins, and she didn't play defense. She addressed it real quick. You know, do you think Biden should have absolute immunity or whatever? And she's saying, well, This is the argument that the Trump campaign is making. But regardless, what we really should focus on is the issues and understand that the DOJ is being weaponized against their political opponents, right? Like, she gets right back to the subject at hand. She doesn't allow herself to get caught with the gotcha, because if she would have answered that question, said, well, no, I don't think Joe Biden should have immunity, but I think Trump should have immunity. Well, she looks like a massive hypocrite at that point, okay? But she doesn't get caught with that. And then she immediately moves back to the subject matter that she really wants to talk about, which is the DOJ being weaponized and the fact that we have more pressing issues that the American people are worried about. Again, amazing job by Elise Stefanik.
I think the scathing report, though, that came out today that you referenced on President Biden's handling of documents would suggest that it's not weaponized, because it was quite brutal in its assessment. But if he had been charged,
prosecution,
if he had been charged, would you make the argument that he shouldn't have been charged because he has presidential immunity?
Well, first of all, if you look at what the special counsel said, it was a willfully not abiding by rules when it comes to classified information, willfully breaking the law. And the only reason they're not pursuing prosecution is because of the lack of mental acuity of the President of the United States. And this disastrous press conference.
He cooperated.
No,
so
no,
do you agree
it's specifically
having
because
classified
it's
documents
specifically
is bad?
because of the mental acuity that was pointed out in the document. That's why you saw a panicked White House forced out a doddering, unfit President of the United States for a disastrous press conference to trying to clean it up, and it only did more damage. The reality, Caitlin, is Donald Trump is going to win this November, and Democrats are spiraling out of control because they see that Joe Biden continues to plummet. His polls are going to go down much further tomorrow based upon that horrific press conference today, and it's selective prosecution. The fact that it's not even a slap on the wrist when the prosecutor himself, the special counsel himself,
but
it is not a slap on the wrist when they
that if
specifically
Donald
say
Trump,
we're not pursuing that prosecution.
But they talked, a big part of this is that President Biden went and sat down with them for 2 days, over the course of 2 days. Obviously, that's the interview that you're talking about, where they talked about his age. Donald Trump hasn't cooperated. Don't you just think if he had cooperated, he could be in the same situation?
This is at the behest of Joe Biden.
But if he had cooperated, don't you think he could be in the same situation?
First of all, there is a difference
here. Biden?
President Trump has, according to the Presidential Records Act, he has declassification authorities. Joe Biden does not have that when he was Vice President of the United States. Joe Biden also had classified documents when he was a sitting senator. That is not covered by the Presidential Records Act. So to say...
I've read the Presidential Records Act. It also doesn't give Trump the authority to just take documents and keep them in a ballroom.
This was a raid on Mar-a-Lago, Caitlin, versus working with Joe Biden and saying he willfully broke the law but refusing to prosecute.
But
it
that's
is selective
my point.
Prosecution.
That's my point, because Trump did not hand over the documents for more than a year. Jim Trusty could tell you that.
From the DOJ, from Joe Biden's DOJ, ordered by Merrick Garland not to prosecute against Joe Biden, even though it specifically found that he willfully broke the law.
It was an independent
And on top of that,
special
the reason why they're not prosecuting is because they say he's mentally unfit to put in front to pursue that. That is unheard of, and it is selective prosecution, and it's why people inherently know across this country, if your last name happens to be Biden or Clinton, you get to live by a different set of rules than everyday average Americans.
I think.
Wow. Elise Stefanik is a bulldog, okay? She's a bulldog. She did not let Kaitlan Collins throw her off, not even once. Because Kaitlan Collins, she was throwing in them questions, right? Them questions to try to get her. Okay, and Elise Stefanik was just like, no, I'm going to stick to exactly what I want to say, and I'm going to continue to make the case that the DOJ is weaponized, that these prosecutions are selective, which they are. I mean, like, come on, bruh. Like, when you say that Joe Biden willingly broke the law, first and foremost, Democrats make the argument that nobody's above the law. So you're trying to tell me that, well, we're not going to go after Biden, but we're going to go after Trump, even though we're admitting that Biden willingly broke the law. But the reason why we're not going to go out to Biden is because, one, he's not mentally fit enough to stand trial. And then also, two, he cooperated. Okay, well, cooperation shouldn't matter if nobody's above the law. If he willingly broke the law, his cooperation should be irrelevant to you pursuing charges because you broke the law. Now, maybe Biden's punishment might be different because he cooperated, but regardless, you should still charge him because he broke the law. And according to you, nobody's above the law. But, they're showing us time and time again that, yeah, there are people that are above the law. It's just not Trump, right? It is Democrats like Biden, like Clinton, like Obama. These people are above the law. People like Trump, not so much. Okay, again, that's the double standard here. And I think that Elise Stefanik did a great job of continuously pointing that out and not letting herself get thrown off from making the points that she really wants to make, that you have to make to liberal audiences like CNN, okay, if you actually really want to sway voters. Because her job is to essentially make the case that, hey, what you're saying is not fair. What you're saying is the state be weaponized against Trump. And I think she's making a great case for it, despite the pushback from Kaitlan Collins.
I think Hunter Biden would disagree with that, and I will note Robert
Hunter Biden got a sweetheart deal. Let's talk about that.
He's been indicted
Let's
by
talk
the
more about the corruption of the Biden
Hunter
family.
Biden was indicted, and he's got a special counsel. This was a special counsel,
and then got a sweetheart deal from Joe Biden's DOJ.
I want to talk about you because I think, you know,
again, this is amazing. If I'm Trump and I'm watching this interview, I'm very pleased. And one of the reasons why is because one of the main jobs of the vice president, I mean, practically speaking, is to be a cheerleader for the president of the United States, right? I mean, that's one of the main jobs, okay? You got to be able to come out here and to make the president look good, okay? That is the only thing that Kamala basically ever does, even though she's terrible at that. But I'm just saying that's effectively the job of the vice president. And if she can handle the media like this, you know, who knows? Maybe press secretary could be a better position. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying, you know, because she actually does have experience legislating and being in Congress, you know, I got to admit, she should be up there in regards to a contender for the vice presidential spot. And she's really working for it, right? She is working for it.
And a lot of your public appearances and your public comments and you know, the resolutions that Republicans are introducing on Capitol Hill that you're a part of, people want to know if you're auditioning to be Donald Trump's vice president. Have you handed over any documents or been a part of any vetting process with the Trump team yet regarding that?
I'm proud to be one of the top surrogates for President Trump. I voted for President Trump in 2016. I was proud to work with him. I've worked with him on his impeachment defense team when the first witch hunt started against him, perpetrated by the Democrats and Adam Schiff. And I'm proud to be a top surrogate. I would proud to serve in a future Trump administration, but we have a lot to do. I have a lot of responsibility as the House Republican Conference Chair, and most importantly, as the representative for New York's 21st Congressional District, giving them a seat at the highest level. And we're focused on the issues that matter to the American people. The border crisis, which is raging across our country. House Republicans passed a border security bill. Joe Biden has failed. In fact, he has caused this border crisis.
Well, also, I mean, the Republicans in the Senate.
We passed a border bill.
Right, one that was never going to pass, a Democratic-led
We passed a border bill, and you and I both know how difficult it has been
historically
historically for a border bill to come together.
Yes, we just saw what happened with Republicans on Capitol Hill.
We got it done. House Republicans passed a border bill that Joe Biden opposed.
I want to talk about the
Biden border crisis is because of Joe Biden's executive action. HR2
he is a Democratic president.
And Joe Biden opposed that.
Right, because it was Trump-era immigration
policies. The reason why
policies.
he opposed it is because he wants a wide-open border, which is what his executive actions caused.
Well, he said he was willing.
I love this. I absolutely love this. Oh, my God, I love this so much. Because unlike other Republicans, she's actually saying what I've been begging these Republicans to say when you're having a conversation about the border. Talk about your own damn legislation. Instead of coming out here and saying, oh, we don't need legislation, right? Which, again, is just, anyways, there's neither here nor there. She knows that the border needs a permanent fix, right? And the only way you're going to get a permanent fix is with legislation. The GOP has that legislation. They passed it in the House, okay? So instead of letting Kaitlan Collins go on about the bipartisan border deal that's not going to actually secure the border, Elise Stefanik sticks to her guns and says, no, no, no. If you actually want to secure the border, here's the legislation to do it. Joe Biden needs to accept it. Democrats need to take it up in the Senate, and they need to vote on it so that it can go to Joe Biden. And if he actually wants to secure the border, that's the bill that he needs to sign. Anything less than that is a non-option. This is what all Republicans should be saying. If all Republicans were saying this, there would be massive pressure on Democrats to actually get on board with the deal. And they may choose not to do it. That's okay. But let them take that L. But you can't say that you didn't put forward your own solution and that you didn't push for it 100%. And now you're telling the American people that, hey, if you vote for us, this is our legislation. This is what we're going to pass to fix the border. Otherwise, again, if Democrats don't want to play ball, okay, cool. Let them die on that hill. Because Joe Biden does have the executive authority to try to secure the border and to deter illegal immigration. And if he doesn't want to do that, Fine, right? So he doesn't want to do it via executive orders and he doesn't want to do it via legislation. That's W for the GOP. That's W for the GOP. And again, I think Elise Stefanik is one of the Republicans that understand that. Talk about your own legislation. Talk about what you've done. Give people a reason to say, hey, if I vote for Republicans, they're going to pass this piece of legislation. This is what they're going to do. They're not just going to put a Band-Aid on it and then say it's fixed. No, they're actually going to try to push for a permanent fix. That's what I want to hear. Again, at least she gets it, right? She gets it.
Like to shut the border down, but
and he has the executive authority to do so. He has the executive authority to do so. No, I'm not.
I'd like to return to my question.
I'm not allowing you to just say something that's factually not true.
Facts.
He has the executive authority right now to end catch and release. He has the executive authority right now to close the border.
Congress has the ability to pass legislation.
And we did.
And let's talk about the vice presidency, because you just said.
Yeah. Again, she is a bulldog because the president should not even have the discretion to determine how he wants to enforce border laws, right? Because that's essentially the problem here, okay? The problem is that Biden has too much discretion. All these executive orders that people want Biden to put in place, that Trump had in place, should actually be codified into law so that Biden doesn't have the discretion to get rid of them in the first place, right? That's the argument for why legislation is needed. And I don't understand why is it so hard for people to understand this. It's very simple. Executive orders are not laws. Executive orders are Band-Aids. We need legislation to codify these executive orders that were effective under Trump into law. We need to take away discretion from the executive branch in regards to how they enforce border security. The problem is that Biden has too much discretion. This is why you're seeing this. This is why the border is wide open, because the laws on the books are not tough enough. Okay? It's really that simple. Elise Stefanik understands this. You don't lose anything by pushing your own legislation, even if Democrats don't decide to get on board with it. Even if they say, you know what, nah, we don't want to do it. Okay, fine. Well, Biden can do it via executive orders. Oh, he chooses not to do it? Okay, fine, cool. Well, hey, if you want to secure the border, you got to vote for us, right? That's what you do. That's what you do.
You've referred to the January 6th defendants as hostages. As someone who was in Israel for several weeks after October 7th and met with families of real hostages, don't you find that offensive?
I've given those family members of hostages in Israel, we've hosted them at, among House Republicans, and we continue to stand up to make sure Israel has the right to defend itself. And Kaitlan, you should be condemning the fact that the President of the United States called into question Israel at his press conference today. Meanwhile, he misunderstood and confused the President of Egypt with the President of Mexico. But I will continue to stand up for Israel's right to defend itself. And yet you have a President of the United States who issued a veto threat. I stand by my statement there. And what people are seeing is an unequal Department of Justice, where on one hand you have BLM violent rioters who are not prosecuting.
You're going off
who
topic.
Are not prosecuting. You have
You're going off topic. No, she's not. She's just bringing up inconvenient facts that you don't want to talk about, right? Like left-wing violent extremism and the double standard that we have in this country when it comes to how they don't face consequences for their actions. But you want to make people on the right or conservatives or your political opponents face consequences for political violence when you don't even do that to your own side of the aisle.
BLM violent rioters who are not being prosecuted by the DOJ, and you have non-violent individuals who were in the Capitol on January 6th but did not commit violent acts who are being prosecuted by the DOJ, being held. That is inherently un-American.
You draw the distinction in the criminal defendants and the people who were raped and kidnapped into Gaza.
I draw a distinction by the DOJ, the fact that they refuse to prosecute violent rioters during BLM, and yet they have an unequal set of rules and go after non-violent individuals on January 6th. CNN continues to struggle because you continue to fail to understand the American people's frustration with this two-tiered set of justice in this country.
I don't think that has to do with calling the criminal defendants.
It has to do with a lot more than that, but that's one aspect of it.
Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, thanks for
Wow. Yeah, that was amazing, right? That was amazing. Again, she never stopped going on offense. Okay, she never played defense. She continued to keep the pressure on CNN. She continued to get into things that she wanted to say, right, to put the message out there. And that was a masterclass, man. That's one of the best interviews I've seen because she was asked tough questions, right? I mean, Kaitlan Collins tried to get her with a lot of gotcha questions, and she just bullied her way through this whole interview. Again, That is what you're looking for from your vice president, right? If you're looking for somebody to defend you, or even your press secretary as well too, those are the type of traits that you're looking for in regards to being able to take on the media. And she did an amazing job with that. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.